Hey, in this video I'm going to introduce you to Access 2010, the missing manual. That's my favorite series for learning how to use basic Access. So I opened up Access here. So basically I'm going to introduce you to a lot of the basic stuff for Access. How to work with tables, how to save tables, make backups, work with Datasheet, Design View, how to work with indexes, primary keys, how to work with data, number formatting, data types, move columns, add records, work with indexes, multi-indexes, and table relationships. So first thing I'm going to show you how to do is work with databases. So File, New, and Blank Database. So this is how you create a database, and you click this folder here, and you can say where you want to save the database, and then you click Create, and then that creates a new database. Go to File, Options, and General, and then over here you could select the default database folder. So this will change where the default database folder is. So if you save databases a lot, you could change the default saving location. The database, anytime we make changes to a record, it auto saves. And you have to save the tables anytime you adjust them. Access will prompt you, say if I change this one to Bush 2 and try to close this table, still saves as Bush 2. So like here is the navigation pane on the left hand side. You could expand that. You can filter it by the group and look at all these different things. For now I'm just going to go over tables. In the next video I'll go over queries and stuff like that. So basically each table has fields, which are vertical columns, and then they have rows, which are records. Each of these are records or instances in the database that contain specific records for each of the columns. So basically Laura, Bush 2, Laura's the first name, Bush 2 is the last name. Very basic stuff. You could right click here and you could click delete to delete a record. I'm not going to delete it right now because I've deleted so many records. If you want to make a backup database, click File, go to Save As, and click here Backup Database, Save As. Do you want to save the changes? No. So right now I create a backup database which will save all of the adjustments I made to the table. Another thing about Access is when you have Access open, it has the LACCDB, the lock record locking information. So basically there's always that'll indicate that someone's using the database, because multiple people can use the database at the same time, but they can't change the same record at the same time. But basically this just indicates that the database is in use. So if I close the database, this LACCDB file will disappear. So I guess one thing you can do to make shortcuts to tables is you could click here and you could drag that over there. So that's a shortcut to the collectors table. So you could create shortcuts to tables if you need to open a table really quickly and make adjustments to that table, which is cool because say if you're working with VBA, you could just open up a shortcut, add data, upload data, etc. to the table. So I'm going to go to show you the difference between Datasheet and Design View. So open up collectors. Right now this is Datasheet View because you could add records and stuff. But if you click down here, you go to Design View, which will let you add columns. So this will be new column over here, and then this will just be the data type for that column. And I'll go over the data types in a little bit, but basically you could click up here and you could go to Datasheet View, yes, and you could switch back to Design View up here too, just like you could click down here to switch between the two, whichever you prefer. So I'm going to go to Design View, and for short text, so this field size is how many characters you could have in the field. So you could have a name that's 255 characters long, or letters or numbers or whatever. Say if you change a number, if you change from text to a number, you have to be careful, because when you switch to a number, it basically removes any decimal points, so you don't want to lose decimal points. Let me go to number formatting. So numbers, over on field size, we got long integer, which basically is 2 billion negative to positive 2 billion, and then integers negative 30,000 to positive 30,000. I use doubles for numbers because double lets you have 15 decimal points, and you work in like the hundreds and hundreds of trillions of numbers. So it could be a massively big number, and it's very precise with 15 decimal points. Replication ID, you could use that for instead of like auto number for the primary key. So you could switch the number up here to a replication ID, and then you can right click here and add a primary key. So basically what the replication ID is, it just auto generates like a scan card or a scan index number, which there's like no possible way, if you had like 1 billion people working for 10,000 years, they would never be able to create a new ID that is it's like a randomly generated, it's like doing CAPTCHAs basically, except with IDs. So you can ensure that that would always be unique no matter how hard you try. It's yeah, so that's what a replication ID is, but I mean a lot of people just use auto-generated numbers, so it just but replication ID is also useful. And then for the decimal places, you could change how many decimal places you want. You could have 7, etc. And then over here, for required, you can have yes or no. Yes makes it so you can't have null values. So the primary keys, they never have null values, and they never have duplicates. So they're always unique, and they're never blank. So because what the primary key does is it basically indicates that this is a unique record, and it indicates like an order, and this is the unique indicator for that record that helps differentiate it from anything else and identify it. And you could also use auto number as auto number as the auto number, and it'll just auto increment up the primary key. So choose a primary key is pretty important. So you say you have like first name and last name and these collectors, and unfortunately that's not enough because you could have 2 people with the same first name and last name. So the primary key basically is just a unique identifier that differentiates everything. And Access doesn't allow duplicate fields or blanks within the primary key, and indexed, yes, no duplicates. You could basically use when you're making columns, I recommend you don't have spaces in between the columns, like $, space, count, because it doesn't work with SQL, which you can see in my Learn SQL in 10 minutes video. I show you how to work with SQL in Access. Basically, spaces confuse SQL. So if you go over here to short text and you go to input mask, you can change this to yes, let's say a number, and then finish. So we're on the notes. Let me click save and then go to Datasheet View. So notes, whenever you go to type stuff, it'll have the number, so whoever's entering data can see that's the number. Go to design view, okay. Design view, and you would customize the input mask, so it like requires like a letter or a number, or it starts with whatever. So let's say this is a date column and you're working with the days. So if you want validation rule, let's say numbers, if you want a validation rule, you could put a greater than 0. So any number that gets entered here has to be greater than 0, or it'll throw an error. You could have less than 0. And let's do this for, I guess, for dates. So basically how it works with days is if you want like greater than pound 130 2020 pound, so that'll only let you enter days after January 30th, and then this will only let you enter days before or equal to January 30th, after equal to, greater than equal to date, and open and close parentheses. So that'll be any day that occurs today or after. Or I could do less than date, so it'll be any day before today's date, not including today's date. And you could do greater than now, open and close parentheses, which includes any day today after the current time. So those are different validation rules for the column. And then I guess you can work with fields too. So let's say you go to dolls, design view. So basically for dolls, say I have a validation rule here, I could have date acquired is less than date purchased, because you always acquire it after you purchase it. So that's how you basically write fields. You use that open brackets, close brackets kind of thing. That's how you use fields in the validation rule. So this lets you work with, let's say you had a state for this. It lets you look up, use the Lookup Wizard, and I'll show you the lookup fields later. But for now we're just going to type out our lookup fields. It basically just creates an input box with whatever field, whatever stuff you type here. So New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. And you click next and finish. So I'm going to save this, and then you go over here to state. So now you can only select these values when you're, it's a quick way to select values. So that's what that's used for. But I'll show you how to use the Lookup Wizard when you're working with primary keys, so that you're not looking at IDs. And I guess another thing you could do is you can move columns. So you left click, double left click, you can move columns around. You can adjust the size of columns. You can highlight multiple columns and then adjust all the size equal to however you adjust it. You can do the same with the rows. You can make them taller. You could select them all at once like that. You could like freeze fields. You right click and click freeze fields. So this field will always be there as you scroll to the right. If you need if you're working with large databases with a lot of columns, you can click here to add a new record. This just adds a record to the bottom. Whenever you're typing, it'll add a new record anyway. You could like search for data here. Say if you had like 1 million records and you were searching for stuff, you could just type down here. You could say like, here's like I'm looking for 9. There's 9 right there. Here, there's 9. If you want to add like table fields, totals, you click here, total, purchase price. You can do sum, average, standard deviation. It just sums up everything here. I guess now I'm going to show you indexes. So You can force a field to require unique values with an index. And let me just close this table out, the database out. So I'm going to go to chapter 4. And I'm going to do, I guess, this table. It's probably the same exact table I was just working with, basically. Yeah, I'm going to close that out. So, I mean, what indexes are useful for is so here you can use indexes to force a field to require unique values, and indexes are useful to cross-reference. Like Access creates like a list with it, and it stores this unique list behind the scenes in your database file. And let's say I go to design view. So this primary key, all primary keys, they automatically get indexed. So over here it says yes, no duplicates. So primary keys, they never have duplicates and they always get indexed. So if you go to design and indexes, notice how the primary key is indexed. Down here it says primary yes, unique yes, ignore nulls. No, so it doesn't allow for null values. And then here's like another index, which was the postal code. I'm just going to delete this. Delete the post. So I'm going to create a new index, except it'll be a multi-field index. So we got first name and last name. You don't type anything there. So last name and first name. So this is a multi-field index with 2 columns. You don't need the plus sign there. I'm just naming the index here. This is first name, last name. You could basically just type like FN plus LN. First name, last name. So this makes an index with the first name and the last name. It makes a multi-field index. And leave it blank, and you set this to unique and close that out, and that just creates an index with the first name and the last name. And it prevents the same first name and the last name from appearing more than once. So say, let me go to Datasheet View, save yes. So right now, let me just type in like Dan U, and then click close out. It says change the request to the table were not successful because they would create duplicate values in the index, primary key, or relationship. You can't save. Alright, so basically, because I entered the first name and the last name that were the same as this record, it doesn't work. But say like I do like Dan New, and press enter, and then click close. So it'll save then. So that's what indexes are good for. It just it creates like that column or multiple columns added together. They need to be unique, and if they aren't unique, Access will throw a problem. So I guess now I'm going to show you table relationships. So what's cool with Access is you can relate tables. That's what makes Access a useful actual program that actually has functionality that can't be copied elsewhere. It basically allows you to query multiple tables and pull informations from multiple tables. So right here I have like I have the doll, and I have the manufacturer's table. And let me close this out and go to this one. because I think this one doesn't have it done yet. Alright. So in this one we have the dolls table and we have the manufacturers table. The dolls have an ID and then the manufacturers have an ID. And the dolls have a manufacturer ID over here, which is linked to the two tables are linked to the relationship. So basically they're not linked from primary key to primary key, ID to ID, because the doll ID is different than the manufacturer ID. But the manufacturer ID is linked to the manufacturer ID over here. So basically how that works is enforce referential integrity, which will make sure it's unique. And right here it says the relationship type is one-to-many. You could have one-to-one, you could have one-to-many, and you could have many-to-many relationships. And then when I click enforce referential integrity, what that does is it basically ensures that any changes that are made to one field, if I click cascade update related fields, it'll, when I click refresh in Access, any changes made to one table will adjust all of the related records in another table. And when you enforce referential integrity, Access doesn't allow, like, for bobbleheads to be created that don't have a manufacturer, and it won't let you delete a manufacturer that's linked to bobbleheads. So I'm just going to click create. So I'm going to close out the tables before I make the relationship. So ID, manufacturer ID, enforce, create. So yeah, so you can't make relationships while the tables are open, but now you can. And basically, so this is a one-to-many. Here's the one, here's the infinity sign. Infinity sign means many. And let me, I guess, show you like the other, should I show you the other relationships? Because basically how this works is each manufacturer is a single manufacturer. They don't work together whatsoever, and they make multiple dolls. So let's say it's like Toys R Us is a manufacturer and Hasbro is a manufacturer. They don't work together, but each of them sell dolls. They could each sell one doll. It's possible for them to run out of stock and only have one doll left, but each of them sell many dolls. So that's like the one-to-many relationship. So say when you're creating a query, and let me go to Query Wizard. I'm going to save query. No. And let's go to show table and then drag the two tables out. So basically, obviously it brings in the relationship when you're making the query. So say if I want, like, I want the manufacturer, and then I want like the data, I want like the character, and I want the day it was acquired. So the query you'll run, it will pull the columns from the manufacturer table, and then the character from the doll table, and the day acquired from the doll table. So that's why relationships are important, because you could link the two tables together, and you could pull information from multiple tables and ensure that you're not pulling extra tables. Since this ID is indexed, it will ensure that you're only pulling specific. You won't pull this manufacturer twice when you pull from the dolls. So basically, notice how, like, the manufacturer, it appears twice here. You got the fictional industries, Harbor Garden. You got Harbor Garden twice. So if I open the dolls, you can see over here, Harbor Garden appears twice, and let's see, Republicans Republicans only appears once, and in the query, Republicans only appears once. So let's go to design view. These are sorted, ascended, datasheet view. So the queries have datasheet and design view similar to the tables that we were working with. So dolls, yeah. So over here it has magic plastic. Let's see, magic plastic. Magic plastic appears once, but over here it appears 3 times. So in the manufacturers, you can see that magic plastic appears 3 times. Oh yeah, it's here 3 times. I couldn't read. Yeah. So basically, obviously the manufacturer's table has magic plastic, but you're not pulling in like this random column here with magic plastic in China because you made the relationship. So it just pulls all the unique records, and relationships help you prevent from pulling like all these extra records that you don't need. And that's why table relationships are important. And I mean, what's cool about dolls? No, dolls. Save, yes. Alright, so design view is you go to Lookup Wizard. So originally this dolls thing, it has like manufacturer ID as like, instead of fictional industries, let's see what fictional industries is. Fictional industries is known as 1. So this is like 1 here. But what I did is I went to dolls, design view, and for manufacturer ID, which is, go to external database tools. So see manufacturer ID, it's linked to the IDs from manufacturers. So for manufacturer ID, what I did is I go to Lookup Wizard. Oh, well, I already created since I already created the relationship, let me delete the relationship. Delete. Yes. Can't delete while the table's open. Delete. Yes. And close. So you go to design view and Lookup Wizard. So now it lets you, now that there's not a relationship, you can do all this trash. I want to look up the field to get the values from another table. So this is how we did like the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania thing before, the Lookup Wizard. Except now we're going to look it up with the table. So we're going to look up, we're working with dolls, we're going to look up manufacturers, and we're going to look up ID and manufacturer. So how this works is we're going to sort by manufacturer, and we're going to hide the key columns. So basically manufacturer ID, instead of having the ID, you're going to hide that, and you're just going to have the actual manufacturers. Click next, click finish, yes, save. So that's how I got this name to be here instead of the ID. And then notice how when you do the Lookup Wizard, it also has this relationship here, and it's created as a one-to-many. So that's how the relationship can also be made with the Lookup Wizard. And what it basically does is it replaces the manufacturer ID with the actual manufacturer name. So the table makes more sense. So when I do queries on it, instead of it saying like instead of me pulling the manufacturer, the location, the manufacturer, like I'm pulling the actual name instead of the ID number. Because primary keys, I mean, if you're working with just like numbers, it's like, what am I even reading right now? So that's what the Lookup Wizard can do. And let's see what else. So let me close this out. Yes, refresh all. So this is like a sub data sheet here. So obviously the manufacturers, it has a sub data sheet for the dolls. So there are many dolls for each of the manufacturers. So you could see the sub data sheet for Magic Plastic has 3. So these are the 3 dolls associated with them. So that's how the relationships show up on the actual tables. They have the plus sign. And I mean, what else? I can show you a quick example of like a lot of table relationships, and then that's basically it for this video. So I mean, table relationships are useful for if you need to like pull a lot of information, you're working with a lot of different tables. Like say for this boutique fudge company, they're working with they have like products, they have suppliers, they have orders, customers, order details. Here's the relationship for all of this crap. So basically you got a lot of moving parts, and you got a lot of tables that are getting updated, and they update other tables because you're moving a lot of orders from a lot of different companies. So basically you have products here. Each product has many details, and each order, each product can have many orders. So each of the customers, they have many orders, but the orders obviously can't be placed by 2 customers at once. Only one customer places orders. And so you can pull like the customers with a query, and you can pull their orders, and you can pull their order details. The orders can have many details, and then like you could pull like the products. So the customers, they could process many orders or single order, and they could buy one product or multiple products. And let's say the suppliers, each of the suppliers is by themselves, so it's a 1 relationship. Here's the 1, it indicates 1, and then the infinity sign indicates many. So if I click here and I click edit relationships, here's like 1 to many. It's like 1 to many. So some tables just serve as like a bridge between other tables. So those are called junction tables. And I mean, junction tables are basically used for many to many relationships. So say for example you have like, let me just make up an example right now. You have like authors, and then you have books. So you could have 2 authors that write a book. So basically you would have like a table here. Let's just say this is authors. Let's just make the suppliers authors. Suppliers are authors, and then the products are their books. So it's 1 to many. And then let's just say here are their books over here. So basically the suppliers, or the authors, they make many books, and the authors, they can have multiple authors can write a single book, or they can write multiple books. And the books, can, let's see. Oh, and a single author can also write multiple books. So multiple authors can write a single book or multiple books, and a single author can write a single book or multiple books. So this is where the junction table comes in handy, because it serves as a bridge between two different tables, so one to many and then one to many, and then you basically link them all together and it doesn't duplicate anything, which is what the many to many relationship is. And I mean, there's also the one-to-one relationship, but those are pretty rare. And yeah, I mean, thanks for watching my video. In the next video, I went over Access 2010, the missing manual, chapters 1 through